What's up everyone, Ronco Pop back with another video, and today we are continuing my Drawtober Halloween movie villains that I am drawing for the month of October. Today we are drawing a character that I am not super familiar with, but we are drawing Sam from Trick or Treat. So let's get into it here. I am using just a Procreate pencil. I've adjusted just a little bit in the settings just to make it a little bit easier because I do have a heavy hand. I don't like to press down super hard, so I make the settings a little bit easier for the way I draw. First thing up, I'm going to draw the head here. Give it a little bit of a face. We have the button eyes. That's what we're looking for there. Like I said, I'm not super familiar with this character. I recently saw the movie because I was doing some, doing the research on deciding what horror movie villains I wanted to draw. And this guy came up. So I only saw it recently, and it was an interesting movie. I'll give him his hand right here because he's going to be holding the little lollipop blade that he uses. Not really a blade, but it looks like a jagged blade by the end. Or the beginning, depending on the way you look at the movie. But yeah, speaking of the movie, it was interesting to see. It was kind of like an anthology of different horror story movies, and it wasn't just like Freddy or Jason going out and just killing everybody. But no, you had Sam, and he didn't do all the killing, but he was always in the scene at one point or another, which is an interesting way I thought of doing it. So we're gonna have the mouth here. Put some stitches across there like that. Alright, and then for the lollipop, let's see, for the hand, I'm going to have that little raggedy stuff that he wears for gloves. Popsicle is going to be about right there. Looks pretty good there. And yeah, I think I like the way that came out. Have the little ropes that go around his neck. So let's get into the inks here. So new layer. Drop the opacity of my pencils right here. Pretty low there. Go back to my top layer. Change it to black ink, and I'm going to use my just regular studio pen that I've adjusted on the streamline settings. So it makes the lines a little bit more streamlined and not as jagged. And we'll get in here with the head first. I'm going to up the setting on this brush too. I'm at a 20, so right now I think I'm going to go up. I'm going to go pretty high. I'm going to go to about a 43%. That way it gives me a nice crisp line up there. Good line weight to it also. And I don't want it super, like a perfect circle, so I'm not going to put my finger down, but I am going to keep the pencil there, so that way we have that. I'm going to go in here like this, because I'm going to draw that popsicle on its own layer. Actually, I'm going to draw a lot of things on its own layer, so let's put in the ropes that go around his neck first. Put that on a different layer. Boom, like that. Whoops. So that way I can go back in here and erase those without it being too much of an issue. Do the same thing on this side. I think my favorite one was probably the kids with the jack-o'-lanterns, and they had to go and did the scary school bus story. That was a pretty good story in the Trick or Treat movie. Going back to my bottom layer, I'm going to erase these here. Drop the size of my eraser here. Too much. So that makes it super easy to erase the lines underneath. Yeah, that was a pretty good one. And like I said, I wasn't very familiar with this character, so I wasn't sure. By the end, we got to that character where he was attacking, and he actually got the better of Sam for a little bit by shooting him. And I wasn't sure why he left Sam alive, or why Sam left the guy alive. And then it all came back around. This movie is, what is it, like 13 years old? So I would be safe by telling you, but just in case there's anyone out there who hasn't seen it, yeah, it all came back around, and I won't spoil it at all, but nice little touch there. It's like, why did he leave? Oh, that's why he left them alive. Put the fingers in here like that, just to give it a little bit more. Alright, so now we got that. Put in the line for the arm there up top. And for the bottom here. A little bit too much of a thickness there. There we go. Alright. So now let's put in the lollipop. I'm gonna merge these two layers together real quick. Then I'm gonna put the lollipop on its own layer. Alright. So first I'll draw the lollipop, and I don't want it, kind of want it right about there. That looks like a good spot. Alright. And we're gonna go down here. Holding my pen to the screen keeps a straight line on there. And I'll just close it off there. And this way, since I am on my own layer now, I can erase these without worrying about erasing part of the hand. Makes it super useful, super easy. And I will do the same thing up here. Oops. Go back to my body layer. And a lot of times you could put a mask over this, because doing it this way, you are getting rid of it. This is what they call a destructive way of dealing with the layer. There's no going back unless you do the 2-tap and you reverse it. But doing it this way, there is no going back. If you put a mask over this, you could just mask it and then it would hide it. And then if you got rid of the mask, you would still have your lines there. I don't use masks a whole bunch of times. Every once in a while I do. But in this case, I'm just drawing the lollipop, so I'm figured, it's alright. Got a little bit of a tangent there, but as I've said in the past, I don't really worry about tangents too much. Tangents are when two lines touch one another, and they kind of distract viewers sometimes. I don't really mind them that much unless it's really obvious. This one, because it is right there, it kind of is, but that's okay. Alright, going back to my rough layers, I'm going to rough in the face here. And I'm deciding if I want, should I have it jagged like that? Or should I just have I think I'm just going to have the full face on it. I'm going to give him sharp teeth here. Okay, go back to my lollipop layer with my pen. I think I'm going to change it to a tech pen. And this way it has a little bit straighter line, a little bit more of a narrow line, I should say. Make these pretty straight here. One way to do this would be to draw this triangle and then to duplicate it and just move it over to the side. And that would be a good way of doing it, especially if you want it to be the exact same size, same width, same everything on the triangle. I don't really mind too much that it might have a little bit of a different feel to it. So I'm going to just keep drawing it that way. Alright, for the mouth, I am going to, let's see. I'm going to draw the mouth on two separate layers. So first thing on this layer will be for the outside of the mouth. And I don't like the way that came out, so I'm going to reverse that. Let's do the top layer here. Just want a slight curve, there we go. Now same thing with the bottom. Alright, that looks better. Now, new layer on top of that. And this way I'm going to draw the teeth here. Okay, teeth are in place. And the reason I drew this on a separate layer was because I'm going to go back to the lollipop layer with my eraser, and I'm going to erase these lines all right here. So that way I don't have to worry about keeping it straight underneath with the teeth lines, because the teeth are on their own layer. So this way I just have to erase and make sure it stays pretty straight at the top, which it should. And I don't have to worry about taking any chunks out of the teeth like that, because they are on their own layer. Alright, just get the bottom teeth here. Alright, I'm going to fill these in. Oh. So now I'm going to merge top one with the bottom with the lollipop layer and fill in the eyes and the mouth. There we go. And now let's finish this up with the head here. And you know what? I'm going to merge the lollipop layer in with the whole thing, so that way it is all together. And for the eyes, whoops, I'm going to go back to my studio brush. That's pretty good. Now for the one seam coming down the middle, I'm kind of keep it really wavy line, so that way it kind of seems like it's part of the bag itself. Might change the color on it just to be a little bit darker or lighter than the actual bag, so it gives it a little bit of change. But for here, it's too much. I'm going to keep this line straight, or not straight, jagged kind of, because it'll be kind of like a rip in the bag itself, but then it will be sewn up with little X's all across it. There we go. And there are X's for the strings and the buttons for the eyes, but I am not going to do those because I'm going to do those in color. So let's get to coloring this thing. I'm going to set this to lock so I don't accidentally color it. Tap it, set it to reference, put a new layer and drag that one below it. And I'm going to turn off my roughs layer. There we go. Probably turn those back on later so I can draw the eyes. But first, let's do a little orange here for his onesie he wears. It's kind of bright. Let's drop it down just a little bit, because his lollipop is going to be kind of a bright orange. Yeah, that looks a little bit better. So that way the lollipop will really pop. Now for the head, I'm going to do like a kind of like a tannish. Yeah, that looks good. Alright, let's color this in here. Do the same thing, drag and drop for the piece of the mask that goes down over his shoulders. For the rope, I'm going to do the same one, but I'm going to make it a little bit darker. So let's go down there. Still more darker. Let's go right there. Yeah, that looks good. Alright, so we got the rope, got the mask done. The burlap gloves are going to be the same color as the mask, so I'm going to do that. I'm come in here, draw that part. And for the skin, I'm going to use like a kind of a dirtyish skin. Because his fingers are outside the gloves, but they're not exactly clean fingers. Alright, let's go with this color, but a little bit lighter there for the lollipop stick. Very monotone, but that's the way the character goes. But for the lollipop, we're going to really punch it up do a real bright orange. Oops. Yeah, I like that. Really makes it stand out. Okay, so we got some grayish, blackish buttons for his eyes. Now what I'm going to do is drop the opacity on my colors really low. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to pick the right color I want for the thread, because that's what I'm going to be working on. Let's do, yeah, that, let's do, take that off, a little bit lighter. Because I want it to contrast, I want the thread to be a different color than the mask. Alright, so now that I got the color chosen, right, I am going to drop a new layer, not a new layer, I'm going to drop the opacity on this layer really low, turn this one back on so I can see the X's, go back to my color layer, and now I'm just going to draw in. There we go. Alright, take that back off, put my opacity back up on my color layers. Yeah, I like the way those threads came out. The contrast of colors from the light kind of tannish brown to the darker brown of the masks looks pretty good. Alright, so what I'm going to do is, let's see, let's add some shadows in here now. This is a Halloween themed, I mean they're all Halloween themed, but I'm going to do a dark purple here. New layer on top of my color layers. I'm going to use my studio brush, and let's see, I'm going to have this, the light source coming in from this way, so I'll have shadows on the back side. That looks good. Oh, before I do that, let's go back here. I'm going to do a clipping mask here so I can go and I don't have to worry about painting outside of it. It's pretty good there. Alright, so now I will go down here. Like the way that's looking there. Erase this little spot here on the lollipop. Probably put some highlights in for the lollipop, but I'll do that in a second. Going back to here, let's do some alright. Some more shadows inside the gloves, and just kind of like if it was just off of his shirt there. It's pretty good there. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is use my selection tool, go in here, select this. As I've said, there are probably some other ways of doing this, but I find using the selection tool pretty easy, pretty quick as well. So I just select off all the area that I'm going to want in shadow, and then just drag and drop. Make sure you always come back to the dot, drag and drop there, you know, drag and drop everywhere else you want it to be. Undo that, and there we go. Go back in here. I'm going to erase that part there. I'm not going to do the ropes there. I think I'm just going to do the mask underneath. There we go, just like that. It's all set. And one more here. And as you can see, I went outside of the line, but that is okay because we have it on the clipping mask. So it won't really do much damage outside. Do the same thing here. Alright, I'll finish off the rest of this. And we'll drop the opacity right now to see how this is coming out. That's the other thing, I got to change the color of the seam just to give it a little bit more difference than the rest of them. Oh, you know what? Let's do this here. Okay. So now, if I drop the opacity on this shadow layer, drop it down to like a 60. Let's see. Yeah, I think I like the 60. Let's do 55%. There's a little bit of a purple in there. Looks pretty good. Give it a little bit more shadow here underneath this one. Okay. Let's go back to my color layer real quick. I'm going to change this up just a little bit. Select that one. I'm going to make it a little bit darker just to change the darkness of this seam here. Camera might not pick it up. I think I'm going to make it a little bit darker than that. Camera might not pick it up, but it is changing it so that way just have a little bit of more. It's not all one color. There is a little bit of difference in the seam. It gives a little bit more character there too. Okay, now for the lollipop, instead of doing a shadow, I'm going to do some highlights on it. Go back to my shadow layer and I have white selected, and since the opacity is dropped down to about 55%, put in these highlights here. Makes it look like the light's kind of popping off of it. Yeah, I like that. Maybe one at the bottom here. Just right here. There we go. Okay. We are just about done now. I think I'm going to add a little bit of a background though to it. Let's see. New layer underneath my shadows and my colors. And let's do a orangish color here. We are going to do this. Drop this in here. Oops, you know why I did that? Because I have a reference on still on my inks. Take off the reference. Alright, go back to this layer. And since orange is on the bottom, I'm going to put orange right here, right around the top. Put that up there. And then on this layer, still selected, go back to my adjustments, go down to Gaussian blur, select the layer. With your pin down on the screen, you can adjust it. Looks pretty good. I think I want it a little bit lower though, so what I can do, instead of redoing the whole thing, I still have this layer still on this layer. Go to the selection tool and it selects just that layer. I'm going to make it bigger and then pull it down. A little bit bigger, pull it down again. Yeah, I like that. Much better. So now, little lightness at the bottom, more orange at the top, and we are all done with this one. So there you go. Sam from Trick or Treat. Really enjoyed that movie actually for a horror movie, because as I said, I don't really like horror movies all that much. But yeah, this was pretty fun. So if you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. Hit that bell for notifications so you get notified next time I have a new video coming out. And yeah, I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.